You don't go to school, you can't be educated.
New details about the 16 Ciders children and the paper trail that suggests someone was searching for them long before they were ever found.
So when we're talking reading and writing and education, we're talking a whole nother level of expectations here.
I have the explosive records that reveal this story began long before we thought it did, plus the big move made by the judge to stop people from talking about the case. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix.
The court finds that Elizabeth Ciders is unable to be served, and the whereabouts of Elizabeth Ciders are unknown to the court. That's a judge in Gallia County, Ohio, signing off on a truancy case in January of 2022, closing the file, not because the problem was solved, but because the family could not be found. 4 years later, deputies would find that same family, less than 30 miles away, behind a door in a house on Omar Street, with 16 children inside. Picture that court order for a second, because it's the visual that defines this entire case. A single sheet of paper, stamped and filed, that effectively says, "We looked, we couldn't find them, case closed." A paper trail that just stops. And behind that stopped paper trail, for 4 more years, 16 children kept living in a 12 by 12 room. Before we go deeper into what the records actually show, make sure you're subscribed to the Crime Infinity, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. And the evidence here goes back years further than anyone first reported.
We have a lot to discuss with the Ciders case out of Ohio. A lot. We've uncovered some new details, and the judge has actually signed a gag order, preventing the people involved in the case on the prosecution side or the defense from talking about it. But first of all, I've been telling you that Children's Services in one Ohio county had been in touch with members of the Ciders family. Well, now we have documents showing there was not only concern by Children's Services about the Ciders children, but also grave concern on the part of the school district where the Ciders children were supposed to attend school. And that concern goes back years. It's been exactly 2 weeks since deputies in Vinton County, Ohio, went to the home where Elizabeth Ciders and her husband, Gary Ciders Jr., were living. They went there to execute a search warrant as they investigated a crime. What deputies and Ohio BCI agents found was not what they were expecting. They said they found 16 children ranging in age from 1.5 to 18 inside the home on Omar Street. The children, according to the state attorney general, were not in good shape.
Through that right now, some of these children couldn't even speak. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking. This is very. It was terrible. I mean, it looked like almost feral animals. It was terrible. So when we're talking reading and writing and education, we're talking a whole nother level of expectations here. Like it's hard enough just to get these kids to be able to the 18-year-old can't spell it.
Since that press conference, we've learned that some of the older children have social media accounts, but just how much they can spell and write.
Here's what's confirmed. On June 30th, deputies in Vinton County, Ohio, executed a search warrant at a home on Omar Street. Investigators say they found 16 children ranging in age from 1.5 to 18, living in conditions Ohio's Attorney General publicly described in terms usually reserved for animal cruelty cases. Kids kept in a single room, exposure to human waste, some of the older children reportedly unable to speak or spell despite their age. 4 adults, Gary Ciders Sr., Christina Lynn Ciders, Gary Ciders Jr., and Elizabeth Ciders, now face 16 counts each of child endangering. All 4 have pleaded not guilty. That's the exhibit everyone already knows. Here's the irony explosion. This family was not off the radar. They were on it, repeatedly, starting in October 2021, nearly 5 years before deputies ever set foot on Omar Street.
Now, I've told you that the family was originally from Gallia County. Gallia is the county south of Vinton, and records show the family moved to Vinton County about 4 years ago. And there was likely a reason for that move. The puzzle pieces here, they're fitting together. They are painting the picture. It's becoming very clear. I've been telling you for the last week, The Children's Services had been looking into the Ciders family. That look at them started in Gallia County back in 2021. The juvenile court in Gallia County went looking for the Ciders after the older children didn't show up for school. The Ciders home at that time was on Honeysuckle Drive in Cheshire. That's the address listed on the court documents. These records show that in October 2021, complaints had been filed against Elizabeth and Gary Ciders because 6 of their children were considered truant, meaning they were chronically absent from school. The complaint states the child's name, which we have blacked out. Then it states that Gary and Elizabeth have failed to cause said child to attend some school or class as required by law. The child has been absent from school without legitimate excuse for the entire 2021-2022 academic year to present an amount in excess of 72 hours for the school year, and as such is thereby a habitual truant. Now, this truancy complaint is for 6 of the 16 Ciders children. Of course, some weren't even born yet. The oldest at that time would have been 13.
Court records from Gallia County show that in the fall of 2021, the local juvenile court filed a truancy complaint against Elizabeth and Gary Ciders. The complaint named 6 of their children, the oldest just 13 at the time, and stated in the court's own language that the parents had failed to cause said child to attend some school or class as required by law, with absences already exceeding 72 hours for that academic year alone. Under Ohio law, that's not a gray area. Parents have a legal duty to enroll their children in school or formally register for homeschooling. The Ciders reportedly did neither. So investigators went looking, and according to the court file, they couldn't find them. Not the parents, not the children. The case was terminated in January 2022, not resolved, not dismissed on the merits, but closed for lack of service, because the court could not locate a family raising 6 school-age kids inside its own jurisdiction. Say that phrase to yourself, because it's going to matter 3 times before this video ends. The system knew, and the system lost them. That's turn 1.
Now, the parallel narrative, because there's a second document trail running alongside the truancy case, one that raises the stakes considerably. Records show Elizabeth Ciders had a P.O. box registered in the Vinton County area as early as 2020, a year before the Gallia County truancy complaint was even filed. In other words, there's public documentation suggesting the family may have already been establishing a presence in the county where they'd eventually be found, while a Gallia County court was still actively trying, and failing, to serve them papers about children not attending school. 2 counties. 2 sets of records, 1 family moving between jurisdictions faster than either court system could track them. Here's the question worth sitting with, because this is the moment this case stops being a headline and starts being something closer to a thriller. How many separate systems have to fail to lose 16 children for years at a time? A hospital that reportedly delivered multiple births from this family without a documented welfare check. A school district that never once had these 6 named children walk through its doors.
In the state of Ohio, it's illegal to not send your children to school. Parents have a duty and an obligation to ensure the child is in school. The statute states that parents whose children are determined to be habitually truant and do not get their kids to school can face fines or even child neglect charges. Eventually, the complaints were terminated in January of 2022. A document states the court finds that Elizabeth Ciders is unable to be served and the whereabouts of Elizabeth Ciders are unknown to the court. Therefore, it is hereby the order of the court that the above matter be terminated until the availability of Elizabeth Ciders. The same document was filed for Gary Jr., the named father of the children. The court couldn't find Gary and Elizabeth or the children. The children had to have been registered for school, but the school district said they never attended, not even for a day, it would seem. That raises the question, had the Ciders already moved in 2021? Were they still in Gallia County, or had they already moved to Vinton County? I have found records showing that Elizabeth had a P.O. box in Hamden as early as 2020, and she and her family are listed as living in this house on Main Street in Hamden before they moved a short distance away to the home on Omar Street. People have been drawn to that house. I met several there over the weekend. They don't understand how something like this could happen.
A juvenile court that closed its file because it couldn't find an address. A neighboring county where, according to residents interviewed near the Omar Street property, nobody in a village of roughly 200 people knew what was behind that door. every one of those is a checkpoint. Every one of those checkpoints failed independently, and nobody connected the dots until a search warrant for a matter authorities say was unrelated to the child welfare allegations brought deputies to that address for an entirely different reason. That's turn two. The system knew, and the system lost them. Again, in a different county, under a different name, on a different form, and nobody cross-referenced the file.
Just curious about this whole situation, because how can a whole family live like that and no one know it? I wanted to see, like, how close were neighbors. Usually in small towns, neighbors are friendly with each other, so how would you not know what's going on?
You live a couple counties away, right?
Yes, in Lawrence County.
So you live in Lawrence County. You came out here to see what was going on. This is out in the southeastern part of the state. Is it common for people to live like this with 16 children, filth, that you are aware of?
I mean, there are definitely places in each county, I'm sure, that have large families that have trouble taking care of everybody, that CPS doesn't know about and doesn't step in. And I think every county probably has some of that going on. It's just usually neighbors help take care of you, though. That's the best thing about living in a small town. Everybody knows everybody, so how would you not know that's going on?
Ohio's state legislature has since approved $1 million in emergency funding for the county agency now caring for the 16 children, with officials publicly stating this is one of the largest single-family child welfare cases in the state's recent history. But money after the fact doesn't answer the harder question buried inside these court documents. The truancy statute exists specifically so that a school's failure to see a child becomes a legal trigger for someone else to go looking. That trigger fired in Gallia County in 2021. It reportedly went nowhere because the paperwork couldn't catch up to a family that had already moved.
To discuss all of these new revelations, I want to bring in Ron O'Brien. He is the former elected prosecutor of Franklin County, Ohio. That's the state's capital. Columbus is in Franklin County. Ron, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, very, very glad to.
So, Ron, what is your reaction to the fact that we have these truancy complaints that have come to light out of Gallia County? We knew the family was originally from Gallia County. But back in 2021, October of 2021, the school district's going to court and saying these kids haven't been to school all year long, and then they can't track the parents down or the kids down.
Yes, and at least that would be the proper step to take when the school district or children's services learn that there are children not attending school at all. Usually, the truancy cases we've had over the years are children that are excessively truant, and there's a statutory definition on different levels of absences, but it's somewhat rare to have children not at all going to school, and that's what happened here. And when they learned about it, apparently they filed a complaint in the Gallia County Court, but like any other court document, you have to get service, and they couldn't get service, is what I understand was the problem, number one. And number two, when they did try and find them, they were unable to find them either at different locations.
These kids in October of 2021, according to the court document, they hadn't been to school all year at all. So that's quite a long time. And in order to be truant, you would first have to be registered as a student in the school district, correct?
Yes, you'd have to register in the school district and be assigned to a specific school and then attend. And if they are at least excessively late, tardy, or truant, then there's a truancy officer that is to attempt to contact the parents, and apparently in trying to contact them, they weren't able to do so, and that's why they filed the complaint.
And here's where the documented record gets even more specific. Under Ohio law,
Homeschooling isn't just a private decision a family gets to declare. It requires formal notification to the local school superintendent with an outline of the curriculum being provided. According to the same court records, no such registration exists for these children. Not truant from a homeschool program. Not enrolled anywhere at all. For legal purposes, on paper, 6 identified children simply did not exist within any educational system, not public, not private, not homeschool, for an entire academic year, and possibly longer. That's the gap this case keeps circling back to. Officials say the 4 adults now facing charges were not otherwise known to Vinton County, meaning whatever oversight infrastructure exists in that community had no prior contact with this specific family before the June search warrant. The paper trail that did exist sat 1 county over, filed, stamped, and closed.
In Cincinnati, we did back in those days now.
This case, the children not being in school is a red flag enough. That's a major red flag right there. But Ron, have you ever in your career, your lengthy career as a prosecutor, seen a family that just simply doesn't send their children to school and just squirrels them away, it appears? It appears they just have the kids, according to what the prosecutors have said, hidden in the house. I don't know if I've ever heard of such a thing.
Well, I would have to say that I've seen it before, but not with 16 kids. And that's
Really?
so amazing to me in this entire case, that people in Gallia County, people in Vinton County, neighbors, people at the gas station, grocery store, and whatever, no one in a small village of only 200 was aware that there were 16 kids behind the closed doors of that home. And that just kind of boggles your mind. And on top of which, this issue of schooling, issue of the small facility where they were being kept, it just is amazing as the facts unfold.
What do you think? I'm asking you to speculate a little bit, but what do you think was at the root of this? Because I went out to the neighborhood over the weekend. You can't get in the house. The crime scene tape is still up, obviously. You can't go in there anyway, but there have been some images leaked online and it's a mess. It's not even a mess. That's not even an appropriate term. It's like a mess on steroids times 50 from what we've seen online. What on earth is going on that you've got kids and even adults living in this type of environment?
It just is, I have seen it with several children, but not as bad as it's been described by the authorities in Vinton County and the Attorney General's office. And secondly, it's just, as they said, a horrific kind of circumstance. And it's just, as I say, boggles my mind how it escaped detection up till this point in time, which actually they wouldn't have found it, but for there was some criminal charges filed on the younger Ciders that they were investigating and went out there with a search warrant.
Yeah, and it's our understanding that the search warrant is separate from the public indecency charges, and it's the search warrant was not related to the abuse. We're still kind of digging around and poking around on that a little more because they won't tell us what the search warrant was for. But it is confounding that they were able to keep these kids hidden for so long.
The system knew, and the system lost them. Third time. Because that's not editorializing. That's what the January 2022 court order says, in the court's own words, about a family that would go on to be found with 16 children 4 years later. What happens next is now in the hands of a Vinton County grand jury, which is not yet convened on this case as of the most recent public update. All 4 defendants remain presumed innocent of the current charges under the law, and nothing in the Gallia County truancy filings has been presented as evidence of the specific abuse allegations now being investigated. They are a separate, earlier record, not a conviction, not a finding of guilt, just a documented instance of a government agency losing track of a family it had already flagged as a concern.
A judge in the underlying criminal case has also since issued a gag order restricting law enforcement and attorneys from public comment, which means the flow of new official information on the current charges may slow from here, even as the older paper trail continues to surface. If you want to see this for yourself, the October 2021 Gallia County Juvenile Court Truancy complaint and its January 2022 termination order are part of the public court record in Gallia County, Ohio. Search the case index under the family's name for that filing period. Read the exact language the court used to close its own file. And then answer this in the comments. When a truancy court can't locate a family with 6 school-age children, whose job is it to escalate that file instead of closing it?
If this breakdown showed you something the headlines missed, hit like. Share it with someone who follows these cases the right way. Subscribe to the Crime Infinity and turn on notifications, because we'll be back the moment the grand jury record in this case becomes public.